having an issue. Okay, so it looks like everything's good now. I think there was like a Zoom update I noticed when I restarted my computer and I reloaded Zoom. So anyway, on to language arts. And lesson should be there for you guys. It's going to be words that sound similar, which is different than words that sound alike, which we did on Monday. I know it's all about frequently confused words, whether it's one that's, that sounds much closer or really has the same pronunciation, which is what we did mostly on Monday. These are words that are pretty similar in sound. There's oftentimes a slight difference, but they're still very, very easy to confuse. So we'll take a look here and get some explanation as we go into the lesson.
Hello. Are you ready for some more commonly confused words? This lesson is about words that sound similar. Words that sound similar and have similar spellings are easy to confuse when you're writing. This lesson will help you with some of these similar sounding words.
And part of this goes along with just the way we speak. Sometimes we get a little lazy with our pronunciation. We all do it. There's, dialects, accents from around the country and any part of the English-speaking world. And that can also cause a little confusion. And then again, just like with the lesson from Monday, there's things that they're spelled closely to the same, but have a slightly different sound. And the worse off, a lot of times they have very similar meanings, but they might be a different part of speech. So one may be a verb while one is a noun, or one is a adjective while one is a verb, things like that. So we'll take a look here and get some clarity.
I had a part-time job at an office for a while. I remember replying to an email once. My boss asked me about an issue we were having in our office, and I wrote that it was a personal problem. Personal. He called me into his office later that day and started asking me about what was wrong. He seemed very concerned, and to be honest, I started to get worried. Had I done something wrong? Then after we talked a while, he asked me, I thought you said there was a personal problem. I was confused. Finally, I figured it out, and I was so embarrassed. I meant that there was a personnel problem. Personnel. A problem with the employees, not a problem with my personal life. My boss was pretty understanding, but I promised myself I'd be much more careful at work. The wrong word gives the wrong meaning, so it's important to learn the words that you might get confused. Here, let me show you a few.
Okay, so that's a perfect example, something and it might be a matter of, as I mentioned before, just a spelling error. Oftentimes we know the difference between the words, but we might use an incorrect spelling, and then that word is a completely different meaning. So yeah, a personal problem is going to be something that, is within your life. A personnel problem, right? Personnel meaning it's sort of like the humans that work in your industry, the people, right? Or the employees. They often refer to, military personnel, right? The individuals that are in the military. And just like with words that sound alike, words that sound similar, there's a whole list. I'm actually going to go ahead and
let's start with some commonly confused little words that you see all the time. These words include articles, prepositions, and pronouns. The parts of speech aren't really that important, but because these words are very common, you'll use them a lot in your writing. That's why it's important to understand how they're different and when to use which ones. Click on each set of words to see the definitions. Focus most on the words you're most likely to confuse in your own writing.
Okay. And just, as far as technical issues, if I suddenly disappear or there seems to be a problem, you're not hearing me or seeing the screen or anything like that, go ahead and send me a text so I can keep on top of it this time. So a and, right? When do you use one? When do you use the other? Let's take a look.
A and an are both articles, meaning one. A is used when the next word starts with a consonant sound. For example, a dog or a hat. An is used when the next word starts with a vowel sound. For example, an honest man or an apple. Remember, the N separates two vowel sounds. The difference is the starting sound, not the letter. You would say a hat, but an honest man.
Right. So that is the only difference between a and an. They both mean basically one. I am going to have a piece of pie, right? Talking about a singular item. And does the same thing. It's just a matter of what sound comes right after it. So if it's a consonant sound, you use a. And that's just the whole idea between a and an is to make it sound less awkward, right? So a piece of pie, right? Where an is
an umbrella.
I'm sorry, what was that?
An umbrella.
And yeah, perfect, right? And like he said, it doesn't matter whether it actually starts with a consonant or a vowel. If it's a vowel sound, right? Regardless, just like with honest, you use an. So an honest man, like it says, an umbrella, right? Because umbrella sounds weird. It's awkward. So an gives you a little bit of separation there between those vowel sounds. And that's the only thing. That's the only difference. But in writing, if you use a long run, it looks really awkward and it sounds kind of junky. So that's one that you want to make sure that you're using a and an correctly. I will also see from time to time people not writing out and using an, which is more, almost like sometimes we don't sound out that D in and, but that is obviously incorrect. This one, of, have, and right? This is a big one too.
Of, have, and a can sound a lot alike if you're talking quickly. Could have often sounds like could have or coulda. The best way to tell them apart is to be aware of the parts of your sentence when you write. Of is a preposition, meaning belonging to. For example, I made a batch of cookies. Have is a verb, meaning to own or possess something. It's also a helping verb. Example, we have cookies. A is an article, meaning one. For example, he has a cookie.
And the confusion often comes from that contraction that we use with could, should, or would when we make a contraction with have, right? That's where a lot of people start getting confused. So I could have went to the movies, but that is spelled C-O-U-L-D apostrophe V-E. But, like he says, we kind of run our we get a little lazy, we run our sentences together, we speak fast, and it starts sounding like either coulda, C-O-U-L-D-A, which is incorrect. There's no such thing as coulda, or could of. And that's a very common one. That is not correct in any grammatical way. I could have went to the movies. It's could have. But you see, it's all because of that contraction that we start kind of get confused. And it sounds so similar to using that a sound or the of sound, right? Because they're so similar that we start using it. And in slang, if I'm texting somebody, I'll put that a at the end of should, would, or could, and just roll with it. But particularly in formal writing, particularly when somebody's looking at your writing, you want to make sure that you're using could have, would have, should have. But again, those sounds run together and we start confusing them. Let's see what else we have that's of course, are,
or, and are three little common words that sound similar, so they're easy to mix up in your writing. The best way to tell them apart is to be aware of the parts of your sentence when you write. Our is the possessive form of we. meaning belonging to us. Example, that's our car. Or is a conjunction showing a choice. Example, should we take your car or our car? Are is a verb form of to be. Example, they are in the car.
Yeah. So yeah, same thing because they sound kind of similar, but they have incredibly different meanings. They're from different parts of speech. So those you want to, slow down and take a look when you're writing to make sure you're using the correct one. Than and
Than shows a
then.
comparison. Example, my dog is smaller than your dog. Then means next or at that time. Example, first mix the flour and salt, then add the eggs. Remember, when, then. When and then both show time and end in HEN.
I just simply try to remember it that from the math aspect of it, right? So in mathematics, you do greater than or less than, right? So that shows a comparison. That's the way I always remember it, greater than, less than. And then, right, is simply time. It's showing sort of a step in time or the next step in time, but often confused. Through, though, and thorough.
Through, though, and thorough are three different words that get confused because of their similar spellings. If you pay close attention to the sound and the spelling, you can choose the correct word. Through means in one side and out the other. Example, I looked through the telescope. Though means however or even if. Example, I went to the party, though I didn't want to. Thorough means completely, with great care. Example, I did a thorough job.
And of course, there's THREW, which sounds exactly like the through here, which is the action of throwing something, right? But I would say these are probably of the little list we have here, probably least confused compared to some of these other ones, especially with of, have, or than and then, and where and were.
Where is a word indicating a place. Example, this is where Lincoln gave his speech. Were is the plural past tense of to be. Example, we were tired. Remember, where, here, and there. All three place words have here in them.
Now, I would say to add to that with where often gets confused with two words, right? So WEAR, which is like the clothes you are wearing. I am wearing a t-shirt, right? Something that you wear, WEAR, or the contraction we're, right? WE apostrophe RE, we are. So there's a couple other, easily confused words with where. But again, with WEAR, those are more words that sound alike, right? They sound, almost identical. We're, as in we are, is a little bit different. So let's move on here. I'm sure we're going to have a question.
Now let's see if you can choose the right word. For each word choice, click on the correct word to complete the sentence.
Okay, so we bought a.
Use car that's bigger than THN.
There you go. So a here, because that used sound is more of a consonant sound, right? Like almost a Y sound. So instead of an, we use a.
Great. The word used starts with a consonant sound, y, as in yellow. So you use the article a.
And then, right, used car. Than. Right? So more than or less than, right? A comparison. It's bigger than our old car. Than is correct.
Great. The sentence is talking about a comparison between two cars. The word than shows a comparison.
All right. And let's keep going.
Here are some commonly confused word pairs that include at least one verb. If you sometimes mix up these words, it's probably just the correct spelling that you're mixing up. You probably know which word you mean, choose or chose, for example. You would say the correct word, but you might get the spellings confused. At least that's what happens to me. So, if you mix up any of these words, focus on learning the correct spelling for each meaning. Click on each set of words to see the definitions.
All right. Yes, this list here. Accept and accept, right? Very similar in sound and easily
Accept
confused.
means to receive or agree. Example, I accept your invitation. Accept means to leave out or not include. Example, she found all the groceries except the onions. Remember, if you accept, you agree. So give it an A. To accept is to leave out. So exit out.
Yeah. X. I mean that sort of affix that prefix of ex, right?
Yeah.
Think about how it's used in other places. Exclusion, right? What's the other one? Exit, right? It's always sort of leaving out or moving away from. So let's see what else we have. Choose or chose.
Choose means to select or make a choice. Example, I choose the blue one. Chose is the past tense of choose. Example, yesterday I chose the red one. Remember, choose has an oo sound, so it has two O's. Chose has an O sound and has one O.
Yeah, so basically same definition. It's just a matter of what tense it's in, whether it's past tense, chose, or present tense, choose. But you can very easily confuse those two. Okay. Let's see here. Advice and advise. So again, what we're looking at, very closely related in terms of definition, but coming
Advice
from
is
two
a
parts of
suggestion
speech.
or opinion. Example, did you take his advice? Advise is to give a suggestion or opinion. Example, he can advise you. Remember, advice with a C is a noun, and advise with an S is a verb.
Yeah. So here, right, again, advice is something somebody gives you. So it's a noun, right? It's an object. It's a thing. Advise, and there is that slight difference in pronunciation, advise or advice. So advise is an action, somebody giving you an opinion or giving you, information. So those are certainly easily confused. And here's another one, big one.
Affect is a verb, to make change. Example, the price change will affect 3 products. Effect is a noun, a result or change. Example, the effect of the price change was higher sales. Remember, affect with an A is a verb, and effect with an E is a noun. You have to affect something to have an effect.
Yeah. So yeah, this one's very, and it's even kind of difficult even understanding that affect is a verb and effect is a noun, depending on where you're putting it in a sentence. So things like, think about movies have special effects with an E. And it's something that you're going to probably write first and then have to stop and think about for a second and look at your sentence. That's going to be the best way to go about it. It's like, okay, I've put affect in here. Is it acting as a verb? Do I already have a subject, right? Which is probably going to be a noun, and think of it that way. And then, just trying to keep straight. Affect A is a noun. Effect E is a verb. So, but again, it might come after the fact. You might write it first and then come back and go like, I need to double check that. And this one, breath and breathe.
Breath is a noun, meaning the air you let out. Example, he could see his breath in the cold air. Breathe is a verb, meaning to take in and let air out. Example, he was so scared he could hardly breathe. Remember that breathe has an E sound and ends in E.
Yeah. So same kind of difference here, right? So breath is a noun without the E. Breathe is a verb, right? So, and very, subtle difference. It's very easy to, this actually came up in, I think this was on our other list as well from Monday. They made a difference between breath and breathe. Illicit and illicit.
Illicit, with an E, means to get information or a reaction. Example, with his joke, he managed to elicit a laugh. Illicit, with an I, means not allowed or illegal. Example, some legal drugs can be as dangerous as illicit drugs. Remember, illicit and illegal both start with I-L-L.
So that's something to consider, right? So eliciting a response, right? So Noah's saying like illicit might be, some of these they might be new words for you. And it's something you're probably not going to see a whole lot, but you might hear it more in speech. So yeah, if I'm eliciting a reaction from somebody or eliciting a response, that's an E. But again, a way to remember that, where else do you see ILL? It's usually when it's something bad, right? So illegal, right? Illicit is something that is, prohibited or illegal or not allowed. So those two things are in common there, illegal and illicit, very similar even in definition. And loose and lose. And this one gets confused quite a bit.
Loose is the opposite of tight. Example, the shirt was too loose on me. Lose means to fail or misplace something. Example, did John lose his glasses? Remember that loose rhymes with goose and lose rhymes with whose.
Yeah, so loose, right, is the opposite of tight. Shirt was too loose. And they can appear as a different part of speech as well. But lose, right, to fail at something or, to misplace something is LOSE. And yeah, those are commonly confused for sure. And precede and proceed.
Precede means to go before something else. Example, the dancing will precede the cake and present. Proceed means to continue or go forward. Example, let's proceed to the next part of the test. Remember, in precede, the D precedes the last E.
You may also see proceed as like money, like oftentimes if in charity, like if there's some type of event that's collecting money for an organization or something, they'll say the proceeds from this benefit will go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, whatever it is. So you'll see it in that term as well. But yes, easy to confuse there. So let's see our next example question.
Try identifying the right word. For each word choice, click on the correct word to complete the sentence.
There you go. So Antonio, and we're thinking in terms of past tense. So Antonio chose to take his friend. The one thing you want to look here as well is that you don't need any type of helping verb, right? If it was choose, it might actually change form as well. So Antonio is choosing to take his friend, right? Or it would be some other kind of that's what I'm looking for. Structure there to make choose work, right? Antonio choose to take his friend doesn't work. So chose.
Great. You wouldn't say Antonio choose. If this sentence were in the present tense, it would be Antonio chooses.
Right. You would choose.
Chose is the correct answer.
Yeah, you're going to have to change that word. somehow for it to work in the present tense. You're either going to have to change it to a singular verb by adding s, chooses, or change the structure of the sentence to use choose. And then Margaret's advice.
Advice.
So with the C, right? Yeah, because that's a noun.
Great job. The word advice with the C is a noun, meaning a suggestion or opinion.
Okay, and let's see what we have next.
Are you ready for the last set of words? These sets of commonly confused words include nouns and adjectives. Sometimes by pronouncing words carefully, you can tell the difference in how they're spelled. For example, if you pronounce quiet, you can hear the I and the E before the T. The same is true for woman and women. Can you hear the difference between the A and the E? If you're aware that the spellings are commonly confused, it's something you can look out for in your writing. Click on each set of words to see the different definitions.
Yeah, so let's see. Some of these that we might, okay, allusion and
Allusion with an A is a reference to a literary work or work of art. Example, the movie had an allusion to the poem The Raven. Illusion with an I is a trick. Example, the image didn't really move. It was an illusion. Remember, an illusion is a trick of the eye.
Yeah, so illusion, like a magic trick, or it's a visual, sort of phenomenon. Allusion with an A is, a subtle and nuanced reference to, oftentimes a literary work or some piece of media. This show alludes to, a show in the past or something like that. Murder, She Wrote was alluded to the works of Agatha Christie, stuff like that. Cloths and clothes. There's another one.
Clothes are things you wear, such as pants or shirts. Cloths are pieces of cloth or types of cloth, such as suede and linen. Remember, words with a long O, like clothes, often have a silent E at the end. The word note follows the same pattern as clothes, and the word not follows the same pattern as cloths.
Okay. Conscience and conscious.
Conscience is an inner awareness of right and wrong. Conscious means awake or aware. Think of these sentences. After cheating on a science test, my conscience bothered me. I was conscious of a delicious smell.
Yeah. So, if you lose consciousness, right, you're you passed out. And that's, being awake. These definitely get confused very, very, very often. And conscience, conscience, as it looks, is your sort of sense of right and wrong, right? Your conscience is eating at you if you maybe do something wrong, do something you feel bad about. Okay, and here we go.
Desert with one S is an area that gets very little rain. Dessert with two S's is a sweet food, like ice cream or cake. Remember, dessert has two S's because you'll probably want seconds.
And of course, they're very, the pronunciation is there. You could definitely tell the difference between dessert and desert. It's the spelling that typically gets people, right? We can hear it pretty plainly. I don't ask for dessert at the end of my meal. I ask for dessert. But, spelling it is if it's a different situation. That's where we usually get confused. So desert, the arid place with little rain, only has one S. Dessert has two S's. All right. And dinner and diner, I don't know. That one, to me, I think people probably see the difference pretty plainly with that. That's not one I think it's, maybe some people confuse it, but, dinner something you eat, right? You have the meal in the evening, and diner is somewhere where you would go maybe to have that meal, right? A restaurant. Farther and further. Now that's one that you can certainly see some
Farther with an
confusion.
A means at a greater distance. Example, Seattle is farther than Chicago. Further with a U means to a greater distance or degree, additional or additionally. Remember, farther has far in it and is only used to talk about distance.
Yeah, so those also have a little bit of a confusing definition. They're somewhat similar. Farther is a greater distance, right? That's Athens is farther than Lancaster, right? If I'm traveling, I could say that. But further is to go a greater distance. So I ran further today than I did Monday, right? So a greater distance than something you had done before, moving forward. So farther, it's sort of more like the than, right? The sort of the greater than idea, where further applies to someone's own progress. All right, and well, he talked about personal and personnel. I think we're good there. Quiet and quite. Here's one.
Quiet means making little or no noise. Example, the talking stopped. The room was quiet. Quite means very or completely. Example, she wasn't quite ready. You can remember the spelling of quiet by pronouncing it slowly. Quiet.
Yeah, and again, I think it's more when people are trying to spell it is when they get confused. We know the difference in the pronunciation. We know the difference between quiet and quite, but when we spell it, we often get confused, right? So quiet, Q-U-I-E-T, making little or no noise. Quite is very or completely, so almost complete. She wasn't quite ready. Q-U-I-T-E. Woman and women, right? So obviously, one is a single woman, right? W-O-M-A-N is an individual, one woman. Women is a group, right? Singular is woman, plural is women. But yeah, if you're not listening closely, you might not hear the difference. Eminent, imminent, and imminent. Here's
Eminent means prominent or famous. Example, Eminem is an eminent rap star. Imminent means it's about to happen, especially something bad. Example, I'm in imminent danger. Imminent means inherent, a natural part of something. Example, a man is eminently masculine.
Of these three, you'll probably run into the first two more than the last. I mean, eminent, as far as inherent or natural part of something, very rarely used. That's not very common. Usually where you're going to see the most commonly confused out of these two are eminent, E-M-I-N-E-N-T, or eminent, as in I-M-M-I-N-E-N-T. And that's a pretty good way to remember. Eminem is an eminent rap star, so prominent or famous. And imminent, as I-M-I-N-E-T, is something immediate or something bad about to happen. All right, let's see here. All right, let's move on.
For each word choice, click on the correct word to complete the sentence.
All right, so we're going to further our cause, right? We're going to move it forward. So to further their cause.
Great. The word further is always used instead of farther when you're not talking about physical distance.
Right. So, and again, farther oftentimes is to compare that distance, right? So my table, or let's see, my sofa is farther away than my kitchen table. And then 3, women, plural. Yeah.
Great job. The word women is the plural version of woman. It means more than one female person.
All right.
Just one more sentence.
All right.
For each word choice, click on the correct word to complete the sentence.
So wearing headphones created the illusion.
Allusion with an A.
Actually, it's I, right? We're creating an atmosphere. So it's illusion.
Great. The word illusion means a trick or something that appears differently than it actually is. The sentence means that the train seems less noisy when you wear headphones.
Yeah. Rather than allusion with an A, which would be, making reference to some like creative work. Illusion of a quiet atmosphere on the train, right? So Q-U-I-E-T.
Great job. The word quiet means with little or no noise.
All right, guys, let's take, we probably got our practice questions next here. Let's see.
Now it's time to show that you've learned this concept. Try some practice problems to demonstrate your understanding.
All right. Why don't you take about 10 minutes, and then we'll do a little review right around, not quite 10 after, we'll say, 2:07 or so. We will check our answers here. I'll pause for, yeah, we'll go ahead and catch the last couple. So Andrea released the bowstring, losing the arrow. We heard the string elicit a soft twang as the arrow raced toward our homemade target, bullseye. So that one,
losing.
yes, right? So she didn't misplace the arrow, which you could very easily do with arrows if you miss your target, but in this case, by letting go of the string, she's loosing the arrow towards its target. So we're changing losing to loosing. There's a good example of how those are easily confused. And our final one here, right? Philip knew better than to have ice cream for dessert. He's lactose intolerant.
S-E-R-T.
So we need those 2 S's for dessert instead of desert. He's lactose intolerant. Now a stomach ache is imminent.
I-M-M-I-N-E-N-T.
He's in imminent danger of stomach ache, right? And we discussed this is about something that is inherited.
About to happen.
Yeah. Imminent is about to happen. It's usually kind of used when it's something going to be bad. I'm in imminent danger, right? And then eminent with an E is something that is well known, right? So I think it's a great way, Eminem is an eminent rapper. That's the easy way to remember that. So there we go. There's our 8 questions. Okay, yeah, so let's wrap up here.
How did you do on this lesson? As you learn about spelling, focus on common mistakes that you make and also on expanding your vocabulary. A good vocabulary is one of the most important tools for good writing. If there are any words in this lesson that aren't familiar, take some time to study them and practice using them. Click Results to see how you did on the questions.
So, the thing here is really, you don't want to be overconfident when you're writing. You don't want to be tentative. You don't want to worry about every word that you use. But when it comes to those words that we see that are commonly misused, and we have 2 lists now. I think it's 2 different lists. Let me see if this is the same list from Monday. But either way, I may repost it. I think this is the same list. Yeah, it's the same list as we had as Monday. But it's good to know, when you come to one of those words, affect, effect, accept, accept, to slow down for a second and make sure that you're using the right one. Go ahead and put a placeholder there, put one or the other in there. But after you write the sentence, go back and take a look. It's like, okay, is that the right usage? That's the best way to do it. And sort of knowing where those commonly confused, what we tend to see. The of, and have, that's a big one. I very, very commonly see, particularly with people like, posting online and stuff like that, people using should of, of, instead of making that a contraction, apostrophe VE, or writing should have. So yeah, that's, largely my advice. Just make sure that when you start coming across these words, now that you're more familiar with them, just once you see one, be like, okay, let me stop and think for a second. Is this the right word? Any questions on words that sound similar? Okay, well, again, I apologize for earlier today, that little bit of confusion and technical error that I had. We will repeat the social studies lessons I had planned for today. So I can also capture a recording, because I didn't get a recording of that today. So it's not helping anybody. I was talking to myself for about at least 20 minutes there without realizing that nobody else was there. But we'll go back to that tomorrow. It looks like I've solved any technical issue that I've had. And then we'll do an RLA reading lesson to finish off the week. All right. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 12:15. You all have a good evening, and I'll see you later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.